Chaos and disaster in all of the markets, but in particular, Bitcoin is crashing. It is down 7% in the last 5 days. Just in the last one day alone, we've gone from basically above 100,000 all the way down briefly to $91,000 on the wick. This is a disaster. It's total chaos, and everyone, it's all over. Bitcoin is dead. It had a great run. It was really awesome, but unfortunately, as of yesterday, Bitcoin is dead. My encouragement would be walk it off, big guy. Better luck next time. The whole thing is over. Bitcoin is a scam. It's all dead. It's all going to zero. Oh my gosh. Right? No, not really. In this video, obviously, I'm not going to be giving out the bear case for Bitcoin, or we talk about the bull case for Bitcoin. Why? Why on earth did Bitcoin just crash so suddenly, so quickly? Why are all the markets crashing? Well, all comes down to Orange Man. That's right. Donald Trump, now the president of the United States, has a new little thing called a tariff war. And he's trying to get all the big dogs of the world, right? All the big countries to fight each other and get in this kind of tariff war with Canada, Mexico, other places around the world. Trump is having all these kinds of tariffs, and that is causing a lot of people to be really, really, really spooked with the market. In fact, how spooked is the market? Well, the market actually just had the largest crypto crash ever of billions of dollars, multiple billions of dollars wiped off the markets yesterday, liquidated, the biggest liquidation ever in crypto history. It was a bigger liquidation than FTX and a bigger liquidation than COVID yesterday. That's how dramatic yesterday was. And that's why, despite me being here in beautiful Costa Rica on basically the only vacation I'm going to have this year, which is awesome, by the way. If you've never been to Costa Rica, highly recommend you check it out. But that's why I'm making this video, because it was that big of a deal. Yesterday was a huge, huge deal. A lot of people lost a lot of money yesterday, not just in Bitcoin and crypto, but of course in the stock markets as well. It's going to be a very bloody morning for those in traditional equities. But why was yesterday so big? Why was it so much bigger than FTX and COVID? Well, if we look at the last 5 years, this was the COVID crash, down from $9,000 in March of 2020 all the way down to $5,000 later in March of 2020, right? That was a big flash crash. Bitcoin fell about 60%. Now it looks like a little tiny pipsqueak of a correction now, because it is compared to now, right? And here's the FTX crash going from $21,000 basically all the way down to $15,000. And now, even though that crash back then looked way bigger than the COVID crash, actually both of those major crashes, right here at the bottom and right there at the bottom, were smaller than the crash we had yesterday, just because the market is so much bigger now. And here's a question for you. If this crash was at the local bottom that we're never revisiting, right? $5,000. And if this crash was 3 times higher at that local bottom of $15,000, which we will never see again, what do you think is going to happen now? The Bitcoin just wiped out a whole bunch of the degen leverage traders right now that we also did back in November of 2022 and March of 2020. History doesn't necessarily repeat, but it does rhyme a lot. This was the biggest liquidation ever, more than FTX and COVID crash. And so I have to wonder, could that be a sign of optimistic things to come, of bullish things to come, showing that actually the market is really healthy and we're going to keep going on from here? Something else that's really healthy that I'm also noticing is Bitcoin dominance is going vertical. Oh, you're going to hold on to your little cute altcoins, hoping they're going to outperform Bitcoin? Yeah, firm no from Bitcoin yesterday. This is one of the reasons why I do not encourage you to hold alts for the quote-unquote degenerate gambling narrative you're telling yourself that you're going to trade it for more Bitcoin, because you're inherently being a hypocrite to yourself, right? You believe in Bitcoin, and you believe there was no second best to Bitcoin, and you believe that nothing stops this train. Oh, but I'm also going to time this other train that's going to outperform it for a period of time, and I'm going to magically beat everyone else that's also in this thing for the same exact purpose. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why are you holding other things to trade it for more Bitcoin when you hold Bitcoin in the first place? Because you believe nothing can compete with Bitcoin. If you're holding altcoins to try to outtrade Bitcoin, it's my opinion that you're being hypocrite to yourself. Maybe you'll make money, maybe you won't. But the mental stress with it when staring at this chart is probably going to keep you up at night and is not going to make the trade worth it. Let me just look at that chart. That's Bitcoin's dominance against the altcoins. It just keeps going up and up and up relentlessly. It is not stopping. Speaking of something that's not stopping, Ethereum, in terms of Bitcoin, continues to fall like a rock. Look at that chart. Look at that chart. That's just yesterday. Okay. Yesterday morning, Ethereum to Bitcoin was trading at just under 0.03 per Bitcoin, right? Roughly, it took 33 Ethereum for one Bitcoin. Now, in that major crash, it collapsed down from 0.029 to 0.023, which is a huge fall in terms of Bitcoin. That's like a 9% loss in Bitcoin just in the last one day alone. In the last week, Ethereum in terms of Bitcoin is down almost 15%, not including the wick, right? If you include the wick, it would be an even larger correction. It's lost nearly a quarter of its purchasing power in terms of Bitcoin over the last month. It's lost nearly 40% in the last 6 months. That's insane. And keep in mind that in this time, Bitcoin is also down in terms of dollars. It is bleeding. Why? Because Trump tariffs are not good for your little smart contract platform, right? Now, of course, Bitcoin also is falling right now, so the market is not necessarily irrational. However, the larger point still stands. This is actually a good thing for Bitcoin in the long term, which I'll get to more in a moment from someone very smart named Jeff Park. But before we get to that, I just want to zoom out and emphasize how early you are to Bitcoin. You are so early to Bitcoin. People are freaking out online right now because Bitcoin's down. They're freaking out. Even here in my little Costa Rican hotel, somebody last night I overheard at a different table was complaining about how Bitcoin's down $91,000. I asked him if he had any. He said, no, not really. I'm just joking about it, right? My point is people are aware Bitcoin's crashing and they only talk about when it's crashing. But how early are you to Bitcoin? We just had an event we haven't seen since the COVID crash or the FTX crash. Both of those marked local bottoms. And here we are still sitting above $90,000 per Bitcoin. Okay. Even more critical than the price is the mempool. Okay. The Bitcoin mempool, for all intents and purposes, is essentially dead. Okay. What does that mean? Let me show it to you here. Give me one moment. Speaking of being slow, my computer's being slow. Here we go. This is the Bitcoin mempool. Look at this. Look at how empty that block is. Look at how low these fees are. Barely a quarter for Bitcoin transaction fee, okay? If we were to scroll back into some recent blocks from yesterday, there were multiple blocks that were empty. I believe there were like 3 or 4 blocks that had empty space in them. Now, of course, I'm not going to find them now that I'm recording. My point is what you're staring at here, look at this. Look at this. Look at that. Empty. Okay. Do you understand what you're looking at here? Do you understand that you're looking at digital Manhattan? You're looking at digital cyberspace in the year 1635, and you're watching Manhattan real estate be auctioned off for free? Do you understand that? Right? Do you understand that when you're looking at the Bitcoin price chart, you're looking at the cost to acquire a block in digital Manhattan? Oh my gosh. New York was a scam. Manhattan was a scam. Long Island's a scam. The price of an acre of this land just crashed from $10.90 all the way down to $9.40. That's exactly what you are hearing said when people say, oh, Bitcoin crashed from $109,000 all the way down to $94,000. It's like, it doesn't matter if you buy the acre of land at $9.40 or $10.90 or $30 or $50 or $100. When that acre is $100, Bitcoin's $1 million, right? My point is that none of these prices matters. It's going to be cheap at $100. It's going to be cheap at $1,000. And so the point that people are making their unit buys too high in terms of price, in terms of space, just screams to you how early you are. And then when you look at time and you see that, wait a minute, whole blocks are having empty amounts of space in them. Like we have had historically the most empty mempool of the last 2 years, literally right now. That is how early you are to Bitcoin. This land in New York City is being auctioned off for like pennies on the dollar, not even a penny on the dollar. And the chain is so empty that it's just going to, like, do you understand that in the future, there's not going to be a single iota of empty space? There are 330 million companies in the world. There are at most 200 million users of base layer Bitcoin. Even if every company in the world wanted to make one on-chain transaction every quarter, they wouldn't be able to do it, right? Not only will most people never have access to layer 1 Bitcoin, most companies will never have access to layer 1 Bitcoin. And yet here you are, so early to Bitcoin, you're staring at a blockchain that's basically empty right now because market sentiment is dead. Other times it's been very, very full, but right now it's basically dead. And the price is also in the gutter with the largest liquidation since the freaking COVID and FTX crash. Like, how on earth are the tariff wars this big of a deal to cause the biggest market capitulations since the freaking global lockdowns and the Sam Bankman implosion, right? How on earth could it be that bad? It's because, again, of the tariff war as well as the DXY. The DXY being the dollar, tariff war being Trump's war. Okay, let's go to something that my friend Preston Fish was talking about when it comes to the DXY here, posting on Twitter last night. Love Preston, love the work he does, love his podcast, of course, all those wonderful things. Great to call him a friend, and we spent a lot of time together. And for whatever reason, his post is not loading now. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can load this here. But the reason why this is important is because when demand is flowing to dollars, that's when everything else kind of falls in price. The NASDAQ falls in price. The Bitcoin falls in price. Everything falls in price because right now people really want dollars, right? We have this potential tariff war coming. Countries are going to compete with each other. There's going to be a unique kind of demand for the dollar in terms of every other global political currency unit. There is no second best political currency unit to that of the US dollar. And this is what we're looking at. Preston's post of the DXY last night, right? In the same way we were watching Bitcoin dominance among all the cryptos skyrocket to the moon last night, we were watching dollar dominance skyrocket to the moon in terms of the other alt political currencies, the other alt government coins, right? In the same way that there's a flight to quality in the political currency realm, we're going to look at that massive green candle for the dollar, right? It's the same thing when we're looking at Bitcoin. And for the same reason, you would not trade Canadian dollars or Venezuelan bolivars or Colombian pesos in the same way you wouldn't trade those currencies for dollars. You don't trade the altcoins for Bitcoin. That's crazy. That's stupid. That's nonsensical. What are you doing? Okay. You have to understand the tunnel which we're staring down. We're staring down potentially a very chaotic few years here, right? Obviously, I would have preferred Trump to have been elected than the other candidates. However, it's still going to be very chaotic. Tariff wars are not good. All of this Department of Government efficiency, cutting down spending, it's going to have ramifications. And they could be very, very violent to the upside and the downside. And you want to hold quality. You want to hold dollars, not the Colombian pesos. You want to hold Bitcoin, not the Solana meme coins, right? That's what you want to do if you're actually being intellectually consistent. And I'll end on this point for this video here. The only thing you need to read about tariffs to understand Bitcoin for 2025, okay? Highly encourage you to read this post by Jeff Park. I won't go through the whole thing. However, I'll read the intro paragraph. There are two contexts you have to frame the conversation in. Number one is that the curse of the Triffin dilemma. And number two is Trump's personal incentives and his personal gains. What is his personal gain and his personal incentive? Real estate. Donald Trump wants to save his real estate. Most of his wealth is in real estate. Trump's number one goal is to lower the 10-year bond rate, to lower the 10-year rate, right? In his opinion, in this person's opinion, this is why he is going down this trade war route. He wants to have lower dollar value and lower yields. Why? Because in real estate, the more you devalue the dollar, the more your real estate pumps. And the more you lower rates, the cheaper your debt is to acquire that real estate. You want higher property prices and cheaper debt to buy said properties, right? That's what Donald Trump wants for his own personal real estate. That's what all real estate investors want, by the way. So it doesn't even necessarily matter that Trump wants this for himself. All the other real estate investors want this. And what is the point in all this? If we lower the value of the dollar and if we force yields as low as we possibly can, no matter the cost, even with the cost of a recession, even with the cost of temporarily scaring the markets, even with the cost of a tariff war, the asset to own is Bitcoin, okay? We are at war. Bitcoin is going higher, violently faster, because we are in a tariff war. These countries are going to compete with each other, and we have simply not yet grasped how amazing a sustained tariff war is going to be for Bitcoin in the long run. I'm going to pause. I'm going to show the whole picture right here so you can pause the video and watch it. But the point is, countries are competing with each other. They're either going to compete in the economic front or in the kinetic war front. But my hope is that they compete on the Bitcoin front. Bitcoin is the neutral chessboard for all the global players to compete with each other, where they don't have to sanction each other via tariffs, where they don't have to tax the heck out of each other with taxes, where they don't have to actually go to war with each other with a bunch of guns. Bitcoin is the neutral chessboard. and you don't want to be gambling and all the other things that you might get liquidated from, or all the other things that might underperform the chessboard. You want to hold the underlying thing. You want to hold the underlying asset. I've been encouraging you for a very long time to be taking self-custody of your Bitcoin and increasing the security of your Bitcoin. I'm not going to go into that rant right now because the video is long enough as it is. But the point is, you got to take these things really seriously, really quickly, because everything else is trending down to zero against Bitcoin. There's a macaw screaming at me. Look at that. All the macaws. I don't know if you can see them. Man, they're loud and noisy. But anyway, just like the macaws are screaming at you, I'm screaming at you. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Don't be gambling and other stuff. And understand that, yes, we're going lower right now. Yes, MicroStrategy is going to have a double-digit painful day. Yes, the whole stock market's going to have a bit of a pain. But the end goal here is lower yields and a lower dollar value. And both of those things are very, very bullish for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not going to stop at $100,000. It's going to $1 million. It's going to $2 million. It's going to $5 million. It's going to $10 million a coin. And that's just the beginning.